Hey, John Callahan back again, continuing the How to Market to Affluent Family series, and this is the meat. This is the one that I suspect you've been waiting for, is to say, okay, how does all of this abstract information about affluent people, how does that impact my funeral home? And what do I do? How do I solve this problem? So we're going to get into this whole section here of funeral homes and the affluent. Now, we've got a lot of stuff to cover in here. I've got it broken into three main areas. One, my strategic marketing process. And I'll explain more of there. I'm going to give you some examples, and then I'm going to hit on some material related to pricing for the affluent. How to make sure that you're protecting your bottom line and that it's actually worth it for you to go into the affluent market. First, let's talk about the strategic marketing process. Now, if you've studied any of my materials, you'll recognize that I break the process into these 5 steps. That you've got to understand your customers' requirements, you've got to package your business, you've got to train your team, you've got to connect with families, you've got to deliver the experience, and you've got to protect your reputation. That's the standard process that I use regardless of the market. Now, the beauty of this is that it really doesn't matter what market I'm aiming at. If I can clearly understand the customer's requirements, then I can design the business in such a way to match up. But if I don't understand the requirements, I'm never going to connect with it. So the process is the same. The only question is, what target am I aiming for? In this case, we're aiming for affluent families. So what do affluent families want from a funeral home? What are their requirements? Well, first, they need you to be different. Remember, they like different. They don't want to keep up with the Joneses. They want to be ahead of the Joneses. They don't want a traditional funeral. They need you to be a little different. And they need to know why they should have a funeral. You've got to cultivate that issue in the discussions with them. Hopefully you're doing it on their website before you even come in. Before they come into your office, that you've already started addressing why it's important to provide time for gathering together and to celebrate the life. They need you to be an expert. Not an expert in the merchandise, but an expert in how to plan and execute a memorial event that they're going to cherish. How to help them tell the story of their loved one's life. They need you to be an expert in those things, not an expert in the prices of every casket in your funeral home, or how to even be a traditional funeral director. They really don't value that, but they do value you being an expert in how to tell the story of their loved one's life. They still need the emotional benefits of a funeral. No matter how they cut it, they can try and avoid it all they want, but they still need the emotional benefits. And all of that comes together that says they still need to do something, but they don't want to buy a traditional funeral. But they do need to do something. So now it's time to package up your business in such a way that you have something different to offer them. You know, when I'm talking about packaging your business, I'm talking about taking what you do, and if it's not unique and if it's not different, then make it different. You might have to re-engineer parts of your business in order to appeal to the affluent market. You need to have unique positioning. There needs to be something about you that you can say that nobody else can say. And I'll give you my secret weapon on that. It's not that secret, I shared it with a lot of people. But my absolute recommendation is to trademark a package name. You need to have a package name. I'm not talking merchandise, I'm talking the experience package. Some sort of an experience package name that you have trademarked so that none of your competitors can use it. If they do, you stick your lawyers on. If you've got something that either you've trademarked yourself or you've licensed from somebody else who has trademarked it, and you've got an exclusive basis to it, then you've got something that in your market you can truly say, I am the only one who offers this type of service. Easiest thing to do is go over to a website called uspto.gov. It stands for the United States Patent and Trademark Office. If you go to that website, under trademarks, trademark search, and then a basic word search, and you can just put in the phrase that you're thinking of using. I happen to own the trademark on the term loving farewell. It's just one that I've used with clients, and it works in some markets. And you go ahead and you submit a query, and you find that that's my corporate name. Customer Driven Marketing Inc. is my corporation name. So that's my trademark. There are firms all over the country. Let's see, we've got Family Tributes, which is trademarked by the Anderson McQueen website. You look for the record that's live. There's Family Tributes. You click on that, and you can go down and see that Anderson McQueen owns that one. So basically, whatever term you come up with, you do a search on it. If it's available, you go through the trademarking process. It's usually best done with a lawyer. It's not cheap, but it gives you an exclusive thing to use in your market. So I highly recommend doing something like that. So you've got a unique positioning. You need an educational website, a website that's got a ton of content that just helps people understand not only what you do, but the whole reason to have a celebration, the whole reason to gather together. All that content's got to be there. You need expert content that makes it clear that you are the expert. You need a non-funeral option in packaging up your business. And this is purely coming from me believing that most affluent people don't want a traditional funeral. So stop selling traditional funerals. Sell something different. They still have the same emotional needs, but they are opposed to buying a funeral. You need to have something different for them, a non-funeral option. I'll give you a couple examples in a minute here. More than anything else, you need luxury. Everything about your place needs to be luxurious. All the amenities, all the details of the place, the bathroom amenities, the lightings, the fixtures. And if it's not, then you need to seriously consider whether you can team up with maybe even a country club and hold the event somewhere else. If your event is not going to come off as luxurious, you may need to do this somewhere else. It might be at a church, it might be at a new high-end restaurant, it might be at a country club. You might need to go somewhere else to pull this event off if your current facility doesn't have the right sense of luxury to it. So that's packaging your business. The next step in the process is you've got to train your team. Your team's got to be able to deliver on all the promises that your marketing is going to make. Now that comes down to a few different examples here. Lean.org is fabulous training for eliminating wasted steps. One of the things that you'll run into when trying to implement new packages in your business is your staff saying, we're busy, we don't have time to do all this new stuff. And in that case, studying the concepts and the material at lean.org could really help you, because what I've usually found is roughly 50% of all activities in a business are wasted steps. There are things that are done purely because something else wasn't done properly the first time, or that there was extra steps in the process and there was duplication of effort. And if you can eliminate all that waste, you've got a lot more time to do the job right and to deliver the experience. You're going to need to provide some training on the new packages that you create. You're going to have this package, it's going to have this flow to it, and all these different events going on. The team's going to need training. They're going to need some training on the basic concepts of delivering a luxurious experience. And obviously the best two places for that, Disney has got wonderful training that's available, and Ritz-Carlton's got great training as well. Neither of them are directly applicable just to funeral homes. They're applicable to anybody trying to serve the high end of the market and serve it at an incredible level. So I recommend both of those training programs. So you've got to get your team trained up to deliver on the promises. The next step is you've got to connect with families. And by connecting with families, I say fundamentally that comes down to you've got to win the call. Because if you don't win the call, at the end of the day, you still haven't gotten anywhere in your business. Now, winning your call really comes down to you've got to market differently and you've got to arrange differently. Both of those things have to be done fundamentally differently when you're trying to connect with affluent families. To market differently, you have absolutely got to have expert positioning in your market. That might mean that in your market, you might have to become a published author so that everybody in the community recognizes you as the true expert in telling the story of someone else's life. The other part of marketing differently is that whole point of exclusivity, to have a trademark term so that people recognize that, oh, they're the only ones who can do this. That exclusivity is very, very important to the affluent. Then you've got to, that's to get them in the door, then you've got to arrange differently. Arranging differently with the affluent comes down to understanding more than any other group that baby boom woman in the room is in charge. If she's not in the room, you've already lost. You absolutely need to make sure that that room has as many baby boom women in it as possible. And one of the things that I've heard over and over again from successful funeral homeowners, and I ask the question of how many people do you want in the arrangement room? And people that struggle always do it with as few people as possible. They only want 1 or 2 people in the room. The people that arrange true experiences with affluent families, especially, do it with as many people as possible. You want half a dozen people in that room and let them work it out. You provide the expertise and let them work it out because the baby boom women always want to do something. They always want to do something. And in this case, they have the money to do something. But there's the dynamics that go on in that arrangement room of the deceased last wishes versus what other people want to do. They need to work it out. It's not for you to sell anything. You provide expertise and let them work it out and come to a cohesive decision together. That this entire process of arranging also needs to be education focused. You provide education at different points in the process so that they understand what it is they're doing and why they're doing it, more importantly, and that they really need to do something. And you do that through some education at different points. And that you really got to look at this whole thing as an event planning exercise. Once they've come to the conclusion that they want to do something, the next question is always going to be, how do we do this? Now, at that point, a traditional funeral is not going to fly. They want something different. Now you've got to be an event planner. And that's how you connect with families. You've got to understand that you've got to market differently and arrange differently in order to succeed with affluent families. At that point in the process, it's time to deliver the experience. It's showtime. It's time to deliver something that they will walk out the door and say that you were fabulous. You've got to identify the wow moment, the point that you can provide for every family that they're going to go, wow, that was cool. That was it. Good funeral homeowners do this religiously. For every family, they seek it out. So you've got to identify that and be able to deliver it. You've got to have incredible attention to detail, that everything is customized. Remember, to stage an experience, it's all customized. That this is completely hassle-free for them, not necessarily for you, but for them it is. That you're providing ceremony, because ceremony equals healing. And that you're really, through this whole process, focused on creating customer advocates. Not just the family you're serving, but every single person who came to that service as well, because affluent people have affluent people come to their service. So every single person who walks through that door is a tremendous prospect for you. You want every single person who comes through to become a customer advocate, where they walk out the door and they say to all of their friends, you know, the next time you need a funeral home, you need to go talk to these guys because they're doing something pretty good. That's a customer advocate. Somebody's going to go out and sing your praises, and that's what you've got to be focused on in this market. Then the next step in the process is you've absolutely got to protect your reputation. Sad reality is that in today's world, anybody with a computer and an axe to grind can ruin your business. All it takes is a few bad reviews online, And not only will the affluent people stop coming, but everybody will stop coming. So you cannot afford to get negative reviews sitting out there online. If you've got positive reviews, if somebody's going to give you a positive review, you've got to make it very, very easy for them to post that positive review. If it's a negative review, you want to make sure that you intercept that review, that you fix the problem, and you save the relationship. You've got to do that. Now, this whole concept is new to the funeral home market. This is called a review portal. And I've used this in other industries that I work in. I'll just show you one example here. What you do is you set up a separate website. In this case, it's under a domain called rateourservice.org. And you have a little introductory video, some text that just gives them a little orientation, and then stars down at the bottom. And what you do is you set it up so that if they're going to give you 4 or 5 stars, that you make it very easy for them on the next screen to click right through to your review pages out on Google and Yelp and TripAdvisor and any place else out there. You take them straight out to those and make it easy for them. If they're going to give you 3 stars or less, you bring them to a private website where you intercept the bad review, send it to the business owner, and give them a chance to correct it. That's called a review portal. Brand new concept to the funeral home market. I have been using it for about 6 months in other markets, and at some point I'll bring it to the funeral home market. Just have to make a few tweaks to the technology to make sure that it's working the way I want it to. So what you've got to do is protect your reputation so that everything that goes on out there, if it's positive, get it out there as fast as possible. If it's negative, intercept it, because affluent people will absolutely check you out online before they'll do business with you. Let me give you a couple good examples here. Here's a couple funeral homes that I've worked with that are absolutely succeeding with affluent families. There's one in a small corn town of Iowa, Maquoketa, Iowa, Carson and Son, Don Carson. And Don, if you're watching this, kudos to you. You are the most innovative person I've ever had the pleasure of working with, and he needs to be presenting at ICCFA. His stuff is so good. Everybody in the industry needs to be learning from this guy. And let me show you, I've got his website up on another tab here. I want to show you a couple of things here and then read off an email that he sent me. Now this is Don's website, carsonandson.com. If you go to our services and you look at the list, well, the first thing is traditional funerals. Yes, we still sell traditional funerals. That's not a question. But for the people who want something else, you need a non-funeral option. Well, Don's list of non-funeral options has now grown very, very long. It's very impressive. He has gone through, and have you noticed the trademark symbol after each one of these words? He has packaged up experiences. Now, it all started with this one here, One Last Party. And it was people coming into his funeral and saying, Dad didn't want a funeral. And Don was frustrated, and he just told him, he replied one time, would he have wanted a party? And they said yes. And they said, oh, well, let's have a party instead. And it evolved. And the next thing you know, he's got all these non-funeral options for people. So that if somebody doesn't want a funeral, you can have a party, you can have a toast, which is just a wine toast, you can have a round, which is a round of golf at the country club. You're going to have one last goodbye, one last tailgate. He's provided this whole set of themes for people to choose from. And this is the future of the industry, absolutely bar none. He's way ahead of anybody else that I've ever seen in this. And now you've got a non-funeral option. Now, I had asked Don in an email if he could provide me with an example, and I'm just going to read it off here. I'll read his reply because I can't paraphrase it any better. Example of how this has worked with an affluent family. And here's what he said. Had this happened to me twice in the same day a couple years ago. I thought this can't be. It was grueling to deal with both of them back to back, as they take extra time to explain things and lots of discussion/convincing that it was okay to go against Dad's wishes. Families were also very well known, and I knew a service of some type would bring them much needed healing and closure. Once I explained to them how the one last party concept worked and that we would handle all the details, and after I showed them our facility, they both decided, with the help of their children, that it would be okay. Although not what their loved one wanted, they realized it was important for healing and felt that a party would be fitting for the deceased, something completely non-traditional. In the end, it worked out very well, capped off with a balloon release outside the funeral home. Family was happy. Friends said they'd never seen anything like that before and loved it, and we were able to give them healing, closure, and a farewell that will be remembered. Isn't that what you're in business for? This is perfect. This is what affluent people want. They want an option. They want a non-funeral option that lets them do something that may be out of the price range of everybody else. Now, in Don's case, he's got these prices that they're actually reasonably affordable. There's nothing wrong at all with having something even higher end that is out of the reach of the average person. Let me give you another example here. Hillcrest Memorial is out in a small town of, not that small town, Kennewick, Washington, in the Tri-Cities area of Washington. They've got two sides to town. There's Pasco on one side of a river and Kennewick on the other side of the river. And Hillcrest owns a funeral home on both sides. And on the Pasco side, it tends to be Hispanic, working class people, and they do traditional funerals. They cannot afford it. They go out and they do collections, they do fundraisings, but over there, a $5,000 to $8,000 funeral is normal. It happens all the time. On the Kennewick side of town, which is more Caucasian and more affluent, you couldn't give away a traditional funeral. That's a whole direct cremation side of town. They just don't want traditional funerals. So over there, what we've done is I've licensed to them the term loving farewell, and we've created packages around that. So now they have something called a loving farewell to offer the non-traditional family, the affluent non-traditional family. And let me read off, this is from Holly Vandermeet, who is one of the funeral directors at Hillcrest Memorial. And I asked her the same question. Give me an example of a successful family, an affluent family, who chose to do something different. I have one family that comes to mind. He was a very successful dentist. His son was a successful dentist as well. That says there's multi-generational money in the family. They're getting into that ultra-affluent world here. The mom was pretty overwhelmed by the entire process and honestly did not want to do anything. Once we started talking about what an impact he had made because of his dental practice and all the people whose life he had touched that would probably want to pay the respects, it became clear that they really needed to do something. We ended up doing a loving farewell without the body present. He had been cremated, and we just had the urn there, not in the chapel. It was more like a roast than anything else. There was a lot of pictures, a lot of memories, and a lot of wine. The wife was amazed that so many people showed up. The family was very happy that the experience was such a good one. Hear that? The experience was such a good one. That's what affluent people talk about, the experience. So even with a market that it's hard to give away a traditional funeral, the affluent people, when shown the option of a non-traditional funeral, will buy it. They just need to understand why, and they need to have a good option. Let's talk quickly about pricing. When pricing for the affluent, your focus needs to be experience, not merchandise. If you focus on the merchandise, you'll lose every time. You first got to focus on showing them the value of the experience, then they'll buy the merchandise. You need to price high, but deliver higher. Always have something priced high because they'll always want to upgrade. You want to price for those theme packages with options, just like Don Carson has set up, just like the Loving Farewell. Have a theme package and have options for that. You want to offer upgrades throughout that time. Something that could be like a videographer or webcasting, different kinds of keepsakes, maybe a scattering at sea. You want to have upgrades because affluent people are used to buying upgrades. And you want to protect your bottom line. You want to do your math and know that you are going to make money off this family. I've seen it happen where funeral home owners price themselves too low. They don't make any money off of it. They had a lot of hard work, and they say, boy, that affluent family was a pain. Money's not the issue for these people. You need to make sure that you price it at the right point to protect your bottom line, and they're okay if you make some money off of this. They're not looking for the cheapest in town. I hope that gives you a sense for how funeral homes can market to the affluent. It's not easy, but it's very doable. And if you package your business up properly, it's a service that you can give to the affluent families that they desperately, desperately need. Next video, I'm going to talk about obituaries. Something new and innovative that people are starting to do in the obituary sides that gives you something that affluent families absolutely love. I'll be back in a couple days.